Hello and welcome, everybody. We're just giving Zoom a moment to let everybody into the room. We're delighted to be here with you today. This is your Nature Journal Educators Forum. I have not seen you for a little while. I want to send a big thank you to Avea, the Mad Botanist Moore, who over the summer kept our programs going and came up with a number of workshops to help continue to connect the community. Thank you so much for doing that.
No problem.
And it's great to see you again.
It's great to see you too, Jack.
We have a third co-host today. We are visited today by Jim Van Gelder, who is an educator and nature journaler, who is going to be sharing some strategies for integrating nature journaling with the Project Wild curriculum, which is a curriculum for environmental education that is used extensively throughout the United States and a few other spots in the world. Before we jump into that, let's bounce over to Avea and wanted to find out, are there any things that ought to be on nature journalers' radar, events coming up in the foreseeable future that people might want to know about?
Oh, yes. Let's see here. Yes, everybody can supply their own house panthers. I see people loving the Cascades and people cheering on Jim because Jim is incredible. And Rebecca says that she has a special, a one-on-one special going on right now for debriefing your nature experience. And she has a link here in the chat. So we've got some incredible folks here in our community. Before I hand it over, I'm just going to go to the gallery view real fast because I want to see everybody and wave at you. It is so wonderful to see all of you. We've got a full house today. Missed all of you. Props to so many of you for being here this summer. Sarah Byfield, Eleni, Chris, Lisa, Rebecca, Valerie. It's good to see all of you, Laura. So thank you all for being here. Thank you for making this community. And I shall pass the floor now to Jim and Jack. And thank you.
Again, Avea, thank you so much for helping steward this community throughout the summer. Jim, thank you for being here. You have been a nature journaler for a long time and an educator for even longer. Maybe it would be good for us just to sort of start off to kind of find out your path to this. How did you get involved with education and nature journaling?
Yeah, well, I really started journaling first. I've just done anything more than the occasional workshop recently. But yeah, I've been keeping a journal steadily since 2006. This got me thinking about it. So I was really kind of, Claire Walker Leslie was
Such
kind
good resources.
of a big influence. And then your books once they started coming out, where I was just realizing, like, what was there nature journaling before, Jack? And it's like, yeah, that's the bird, How to Draw Birds only came out in 2002 or 2012 or something like that. I'm not sure. At least my edition. So yeah, I've been doing that since 06. So hopefully I've learned a few things. And the only thing I really want else to say about me is that going through my background there, I would say conventionally, I think the thing to say would be I'm self-taught, but that's not really accurate. I haven't had any formal training, but all of this stuff that I've learned from books, from Claire Walker Leslie, from your books, from taking workshops with people, and even in classes at the Art Students League. So I like that idea that, you can learn this stuff. You don't have to go get formally educated. I mean, it's great that they have the Wild Wonder is doing this this more organized, structured thing now. But this is something you can really pick up and make your own path. So yeah, this is welcome to Nature Journaling with Project Wild for Camp and Classroom, or as I like to think of it, what I did on my spring vacation. This kind of came through my email. I forget who even sent it to me, but I saw that this class was being held. Project Wild, let me start off, is it's an educational thing geared towards animals, and it's set up by a bunch of mostly state agencies, like every Fish and Wildlife, every conservation thing in every state seems to have a hand in it, and a lot of other entities, universities, and private environmental groups. So there's just this huge list, and it kind of comprises 4 things: Project Wild, Aquatic Wild, Flying Wild, and Project Wet. And I'm going to be drawing a couple things from several of those, and a few other sources. And when I took this workshop, this is meant to be presented in a class kind of situation. These books are available in older editions. Hopefully they'll be, the actual Project Wild I have, which is the newest one, will probably be available sometime soon. Hopefully, it's not yet, but you can get older editions on Amazon or, used book things. So I took the 5-day workshop and realized a lot of this stuff had direct nature journaling applications. And I'm going to try and make this presentation as interactive as possible. And I would like for people to unmute themselves and just jump in if you have a comment or a question. I see that my Project Wild sensei, Susan O'Handley, is here. Thank you, Susan, for coming. Rebecca Rolnick's here, and Rebecca, I think, has taken this course or has a familiarity with it. And I especially have a special shout out to Tabasam Shah, who, since I was doing some poetry in this, I specifically asked her to come. I think she would have been interested anyway, but poetry is not really my thing, and it is hers. So, okay.
So I'm going to take your lead and just jump in here. This is Jack. So if you do, we want to invite everybody again to please feel free to participate. I'm really excited about hearing this because I have used Project Wild for years. When I started in environmental education, it was like the go-to thing, and it's only gotten better since. And then I found a lot of those resources really, really useful, but then I kind of moved away from them to do more sort of observational sorts of activities, doing nature journaling. But the idea of kind of let's not throw that baby out with the bathwater. How can we integrate sort of real nature, deep nature observation into some of those activities, I think is a really, really exciting idea. Again, I have used Project Wild for years. I think there's a bunch of really fun activities and ideas to help us with our environmental education programs.
Okay, well, let me see how I navigate the technology here. I'm going to screen share. And now, oh, there we go. Okay. Okay, this first is actually not from Project Wild or any of its associated things, and not really classic nature journaling, but I thought it was such a neat thing. And this was one of the first things that Susan did in the course that I took. And so there's a saying that amateurs imitate professionals steal. So I felt qualified to steal this for a nature journaling session I did with my brother-in-law, his tree care group. He lives in Brooklyn, and he organized his daughter and a group of her friends to help him in taking care of the street trees. So this is called Rooted, and they did this for about 6 weeks. So I went in one day, and this was our first exercise. So it kind of comes from, it directly comes from a quote from Aldo Leopold from a Sand County Almanac. And I'm sure most of you know Aldo Leopold. He's an old style conservationist on the brink of the conservation towards environmental movement. And he has a essay in Sand County Almanac called Good Oak, about an oak tree on his property that gets hit by lightning, has to be cut down. So they're cutting the tree down with a 2-man saw. And as he's cutting it down, I will quote, "We sensed that our saw was biting its way, stroke by stroke, decade by decade, into the chronology of a lifetime, written in concentric annual rings of good oak." So as you all know, trees lay down, oh, that's right, I took that slide out. Trees lay down annual rings. So the idea is you give each student a paper plate. You could actually use a journal page, but a paper plate is a nice prop. And also, it's good to have a cookie. These were introduced to me as a cookie, so that's what I'll call it. A section of wood so that people can actually see how this is done, or see how it looks in the tree. And you have them start in the middle with the year they were born, put a circle for every year, and then label them. This one was done, and I think all the kids kind of took the same cue and just wrote along the rings. You can put arrows, you can do however you want to do it. And it worked really well. I mean, you can, the kids just were really taken with it, really enjoyed it. So it's a good icebreaker. It gets the group going. And I consider this nature journaling because it's something that combines making an image and writing. If I told them all to sit down and write 2 paragraphs about themselves, they'd probably hate me. But, you know, as you can see, they're all pretty engaged. I actually kind of had to stop the thing after a while and move on to doing something else. They were perfectly happy to keep going. It works really good with kids. I wouldn't recommend it with seniors, if those are the people you're working with, because I tried doing it and just had too many little circles too quickly.
I wonder if it would work with kind of lumping things by decades with people who've got more time on them.
Yeah, you could kind of although we didn't really share anything that you know, people said we didn't really have time, you can see they really get very introspective about it and thinking about their lives. So, and when we did when I took the workshop with Susan, one of the participants, she had her circles like this, and one of them had like a big black mark along it. And we're like, what's that? She's like, oh, this is something really bad that happened to me. And we were like, ooh, you know, nobody asked what it was, but. So this is.
I want to just sort of interject something there.
Sure.
There is in interpretation, one of the real role models is to look at is a person named Tilden, who came up with these principles of interpretation. And one of the first principles in that is that you've got to make whatever you're learning meaningful and relevant to the students. So asking them to find this kind of relevancy in the kind of the tree wings of their life gets them immediately thinking about what is their relationship in time to that. I think would be a great way of making things personally relevant to people. That's a great idea.
Mm-hmm. That was what my wife said when I told her how, wow, I was surprised they really got into it. She's like, yeah, everybody likes to talk about themselves. And the other thing is, for this, it was brilliant because it was a project of trees. So they're, you know, they're kind of analogizing themselves to trees. So this next one comes from Aquatic Wild, which is allied with Project Wild. And Avea has a number of the worksheets and information sheets that are available. Anything that I say that comes from these books in terms of a resource, you can get off of their website. So if you just go to Project Wild, it will bring up Aquatic Wild, Flying Wild, and you can go to their resource area and access these. Unfortunately, I haven't figured out a way to easily shift to those. Maybe at the end of the session we can, because they have a really great key for macroinvertebrates. But this particular one is called Water Canaries. It is on page 61 of Aquatic Wild. Oh, and something I meant to mention earlier, if anyone has any questions about these or wants further information, feel free to email me, and I can provide you, if I can figure it out, with the information you might need.
We did have one question about
Sure.
about the trees. Karen asks, do the students just indicate something significant in their life for that year?
I kind of left it open. You can put whatever it is, but yeah, it would mainly be about them. I mean, I guess if there was some world shattering event or something that happened to someone else, they were putting in all kinds of different things. You know, this is the year we moved. I was just kind of catching what they were talking about to each other. We didn't really have time to sit down and go over what everyone did. And the other thing is too, you want to tell them, look, you can share if you want, but if you put something down like one of the gals did and it's kind of private, then you don't have to. So Water Canaries is about sampling macroinvertebrates, aquatic macroinvertebrates, macroinvertebrates being crustacea, anything above the microscopic level and smaller than and not a vertebrate that lives in a stream. And these organisms are very telling as to water quality. So you go out, you sample your stream or your pond for macroinvertebrates, and
James, do you want me to bring up the worksheet with the invertebrates picture on it for folks?
Yeah, can you do that?
Yes.
I will get lost if I try to do that. I won't be able to get
not
back
a
to
problem.
screen
It's
share.
not a problem.
Yeah, that's it. Can you go to the other one? This is a good one for sizes, but there's another one that's right next to it. That's a key.
That will take me a moment.
Okay. And these come from the Isaac Walton League. These two charts, and they're a little complicated to find. Like I say, if you want to contact me, I can always walk you through it.
So Avea, I'm having a hard time. Oh, here's my stop share. Sorry, had a hard time finding my stop share button.
No worries. let me know if whatever I can do to help.
All right.
Did you want the key?
Pardon?
Did you all want the key to be shared?
Yeah, if you can find it, otherwise.
This?
Okay, yeah. I like this one in particular because it's a nice, simple key. And if you're working with people who aren't familiar with these things, it's good for identifying the organisms, but it's also good for just learning how to use a key. And a key is one of my favorite tools, you know. As some of them you have to know a lot of technical terms, but this one's like very straightforward, very logical. So I'm going to go back to screen. Thank you for that. Go back to screen share. It doesn't. So now the problem I'm having with this is that I cannot access the thing that will allow me to go to the
Well, if there's a little red box.
Oh, there it is. Okay. I'm not familiar.
Do you see the little drop-down box that says?
I see the box. I can't get my mouse. When I put my mouse near it, it disappears.
Oh, that is frustrating.
Mouse disappears.
Try.
Well, that's a slide.
Let's try one more time. Go to the slideshow drop-down. That's all right. We can just look at it here.
Okay. All right. It's a little small, but this is one of the worksheets that you can download off of Aquatic Wild. So I took the liberty of taking this one and dividing it up. It just has a listing for like one organism per page. So I divided it into 3 vertical sections, and so you could put a few more on. There's kind of a theme that I'm sort of working on here between having a prompt and doing things freestyle. And it's something that I think I could use some feedback for people too, in that sometimes it's hard to get people to actually journal. You'll just get the people who just want to sit down and draw something. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but I don't want to be like you don't want to be leading a class and be like the journal Nazi and say, no, you can't do that. But it's I think it helps sometimes to get people to have a prompt to get them to really get with the program. And the other thing is I find it helpful for myself. Like I'm normally not that fussy about things like temperature and exact conditions. So this kind of forced me to fill out that information. And one of the interesting things about the aquatic invertebrates is that if you are doing the program according to, there are all sorts of criteria for it, the ratio between caddisflies and mayflies will be telling as far as water quality. So it's a good opportunity to work a little math and some graphs in. So I think I just wanted to say also there is, I'm going to go back a slide here. If you're doing something like this, there's a lot of equipment that it's handy to have. This is a seine net. They're a little pricey, but you can just use a fine mesh aquarium net. You hold it downstream, you kick over a few rocks. You don't want to overdo it because you are disturbing the stream bed. And then some containers are really handy. I like the way that they had this class set up because they just had like plastic deli containers, you know, recycled from the supermarket, and a white piece of plastic to put on the ground. Makes it very handy for picking things out. You can also use a hand lens, which is really handy. So I think that's about it for that one. Let me try something here, just briefly. The problem may be this mouse. There we go. Okay, that did it.
Nice.
Okay, moving on to animal poetry here. Animal poetry is on page 339 of Project Wild. And I was really impressed by this because I wasn't expecting such a great section on poetry in this book. But it introduced a couple of poetry poem formats that I was not familiar with at all. I mean, we all know haiku, and haiku is great, but haiku can be a little intimidating. These are more formulaic. One is called the Diamante, and the other is the Cinquain. And they're set up, they're not rhyming, but they go according to the number of words that you're using. And Tabassum, could you unmute temporarily?
Sure.
Hi.
Hi there.
Thank you so much for coming. I met Tabassum at a BioBlitz. She was doing a nature journaling workshop, and I could tell that she was really into poetry because she was like, "Yeah, you have to write me a poem before you leave." So I did. I managed to get that out, and my daughter did a much better job of it. But what was the format that you had? Is that got a formal name, or did you just kind of cut down?
I had a couple of suggestions. And by the way, I do like your use of prompts, and I've especially seen that useful in the context of making people write poetry, because you know, not only can what you're looking at in nature be intimidating, but faced with the idea that you're going to have to write about it, that can be also in poem form, that can also be very intimidating. I use the poem form called the acrostic poem,
Okay.
which you can take, for example, you can choose a topic, and then you write that topic vertically down the left side of your journal page. So if you choose tree, simply you write TRE down vertically, and you choose a word or phrase that starts with each letter of that. So that's a very simple way acrostic poem to kind of, you focus in and hone in on the object that you're looking at in nature. So that's, I don't know if that's the one, Jim, that you were thinking about in particular.
No, but I like that one a lot. Yeah.
There was also a list poem idea, which is also very simple. You choose your subject, that you're looking at, and you simply list their qualities, their characteristics or observations. So, you know, a tree would be the first line, again, if we're talking about tree as the example, and then you could go through, you know, tall, green, beautiful, you know, these are very simple examples. But another example I did have was the cinquain that you were saying, which has specific kind of parameters with it. It's 5 lines, for example, and each line represents a different specific description of the subject matter. And they focus in on, it's good for kids because it focuses in on, or you can choose to focus in on like the grammar of things. Like line 1, you use a noun to state the subject, and line 2, you use 2 adjectives, and line 3,
That is the one that
yeah,
I'm thinking of.
yeah, line 3, you use 3 verbs, and line 4, you use 4 words that describe your feelings about the subject, and line 5, you're playing around with synonyms. So I like to kind of use those as, and not everybody use those, ideas. They're there for people to use if they're struggling to interact. But I love how poetry, as all know now that I'm kind of crazy about poetry, but it's a good way to get up close and personal with things in nature, and really pay attention to them. It's a wonderful way to get very close and have people come up with some beautiful work, all ages, of course. But I do appreciate you bringing up poetry because it's something that is often intimidating for a lot of people. So thanks for the plug-in.
Well, thank you. I want to try something here, which may horrify you as a poet, or the other poets here, but I want to try doing a communal poem.
Yay!
And we'll see how this goes. So we'll try a Diamante first, and people can either unmute or put your comments in the chat, and we'll just take them as they come. Okay. So the Diamante, and there are various forms of these. Sometimes some people claim this person invented it, but then you find out that, oh yeah, no, John Donne used it back in whenever. The Diamante, as I have it, is a noun, adjective, adjective, participle, 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 noun, 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 participle, 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 adjective, adjective, noun. Hopefully this won't take too long. So we'll see how it goes. So if people put this in the chat, or please just unmute and say one. So I think I'll start off with the title because we have it right here, turtle. Now I need a couple of adjectives.
I'll watch the chat and folks can unmute. Oh, I'm patient, hard-shelled.
Okay.
Saying patient, hard-shelled, wet, serene, aquatic.
Okay.
Sleepy.
Let's go with serene. We're getting a bunch here. Okay. Now we need three participles, which are words that end in ing for the grammatically impaired like me.
We have swimming, watching, hiding, slow moving, snapping, sunning, waiting, drowsing, sunning.
Okay, let's go with watching, sunning, waiting. I'm not really making many value choices here. It's just whatever fits. I'm sorry if I didn't pick your word. For nouns.
Ripples, shell, stripes, ripple. Scale, water,
What was
algae.
last?
Sorry?
After stripe?
Oh, let's see here. There was, okay, ripple, shell, stripes, ripples, scale, water, algae,
Okay,
reflection.
I'll go with scale. I'm trying to be less selective here and just taking the first ones that come. 3 more participles. ing words, descriptive.
We have waiting.
Waiting.
Mhm.
Okay, we actually had waiting before.
Okay, we have.
We
Waiting.
have,
No.
we have lazing, basking, slipping, moving, pondering, longing, hiding, swimming, slipping, sliding, posturing.
Okay. And then two more adjectives.
We have earth bearer, handsome, sun warmed, watchfully, quirky, noble.
And we need a noun to finish off. Or something noun-like. And I think the idea generally is it kind of reprises the title.
Earth bearer.
Earth bearer.
Mm.
I like that. Okay, my apologies if I didn't pick your words. I was just kind of going with the flow. I feel a little self-conscious about that. I'm not a critic, but we have turtle, patient, serene, watching, sunning, waiting, rippled shell, striped scale, lazing, pondering, longing, warm, noble, earth bearer. I don't know. What do you all think of that? Do you think that that is a way to get a group to you know get people off of their fear of poetry and putting words down? Because I don't write that well, and I think the reason I don't write that well is because, or I don't like to write, is because I like to read so much. My standards are too high. Everything I write looks awful. So
You do well, Jim. But this, I do love this as a participatory kind of communal project. I think it breaks the all those, you know, hesitations and fears of poetry. The fact that people are working together to create this piece, I think could do great in with people of all abilities. It's definitely one of those icebreakers into poetry. It's a great tool.
okay, well, let's move on. This time is going past here. Oops. Button. This is another interactive. I have this other interactive one, two more interactive ones, and then we can just chat. I think things are going pretty well. And I'm going to delve into the area that I'm more familiar with, and maybe others aren't, of drawing. This comes from Flying Wild. Flying Wild is a little weird. I didn't realize it until after the class, but Flying Wild is set up so that you can set up your own bird festival. So it's got a lot of instructions on like how to set up booths and take tickets and things that you might not otherwise need. But on the other hand, if you ever wanted to set up a bird festival, it would be brilliant for that. And a lot of the programs they have in here are pretty good. This is called Bird Behavior Scavenger Hunt. It kind of ties into slow birding. and that sort of movement. It's on Flying Wild, as I said, page 84, and there is a sheet that comes with that that has a whole list of various behaviors that you can look for and check off. So again, using it as a prompt, one could, you know, if you're doing a class or something, you can just use that as we did in the class that I took, or you can use it, you know, when you're journaling or have people who are journaling try and record these behaviors in classic nature journal form. So let's see, I write all these notes down and then I forget to look at them and leave things out. Yeah, the PDF is available on the Flying Wild website. I think this is a good beginner birding thing because bird ID can be intimidating for people who aren't familiar with it. So it's a good way to ease people into it. So if the people hopefully have their journals around, if they do, or not a journal, maybe a piece of note paper or something, and any sort of writing implement, and I'm going to try and walk through some simple bird drawing exercise that I have had sort of an inspiration on. I kind of came into this by trying to simplify my journal examples that I was showing to students to make it look like really simple, like, you know, instead of doing a detailed drawing and maybe people going like, well, I can't do that. Just make it very simple. I don't like the word crude because that has bad connotations, but I'll say crude. And this is based on the John Muir Law's original formula bird drawing session. I know there's newer versions, but this is the old oval and circle method from the Law's Guide to Drawing Birds. So very simple. You start with a line for the axis, a vertical line through the main body, just to get an idea of where the body is in space. And this is actually a really good technique for recording birds in and of itself. John Busby mentions this in his bird drawing book, that if you have a group of birds and you just draw the axis line of the way their bodies are, you will have a good record of what that flock of birds is doing. You know, like half a dozen juncos, this one's eating, these two are looking over that way, this one's sitting up straighter. So you put the axis line, an oval more or less where the body goes, and a circle for the head, and I like to do a short line for the beak. So if you want to just take a minute and do that, if you haven't started already, and then literally a minute. I missed a lot in the chat, but I don't have the ability to multitask and actually pay attention to it. My brain won't stretch that far. Okay, I'm going to cut it 4 seconds short. So this is what I came up with. This is, and maybe I should have shown this first. This is the idea. An oval, circle. I've left out the line for the axis. Oops. Oh, there we go. Now, what I found by doing this was that I almost couldn't stop myself from adding a few more lines. It's really simple to just kind of add a couple more lines and get something that tells even more information. The key to it is to start out not thinking about doing a drawing, but think about, I'm just going to do a diagram. And I found when I did that, even as someone who's kind of experienced in drawing, it just came out so much better. And then, of course, you can gussy it up as much as you want from there. So I don't know, do people want to hold up what they've done? Does anybody have anything they'd like to share on this? Maybe if you put it in the view where the speaker will show up and speak, or, okay, I can see that Mr. Laws has done this before. And I don't have everybody's gallery view, so. Oh, Rebecca, okay. Okay, I'm going to move on. I wish it were easier to share things on this. What does he say? I don't have the, all I see is the tiny, I see the bird is saying something. Okay, this is another one of their bird behaviors to watch for, climbing on a trunk or branch. So again, let's give it 30 seconds. No, we'll give it a minute because this is a fairly complicated thing. There's several things going on here. And feel free to throw in words, whatever you think relevant that you can get down quickly. Oops. Okay, that was it. I'm sorry, the minute's up. Although people still seem to be working, so maybe we'll give it a little longer. There we go. Okay, I'm now getting the ability to make you guys all bigger. There we go. Okay. Okay, Lisa, I can't really see yours because of the lighting, unfortunately. Okay. Great. Very good. You got some pattern in there. Okay. And keeping track of my time here. Very good. Thank you all. Let's try another one. Does anyone have any thoughts on this? This is what I did. I just put a few labels on there, and as you can see, I didn't even try to get the pattern, just a strong black and white pattern.
I like how there's an emphasis with what is the behavior. So that you've got people searching for not what species is this, but what behavior are we seeing?
Right.
That's a terrific focus.
Yeah, and like I say, it can be less intimidating for people. Everyone can tell what the bird is doing. Although I have to go with Susan on this. I want to know what kind of bird it is. I'm not that big of a slow birding convert, but I do like the idea. I like it a lot more than ticking things off a list for sure. Okay, this one I think is where this kind of thing is really helpful for me, because this is a difficult posture to draw. So why don't you try this? See what we can come up with this one. From rant preening. And I see Kristen put in the chat about using behavior checklist in conjunction with data on eBird. You can, I don't know if you're familiar with it, but there's a drop down thing on the breeding bird atlas, which is winding down in New York. I don't know if it's only on the breeding bird atlas. It may not be on. Yeah, on regular eBird, whether you're seeing an adult, a juvenile, or whatever. But on the breeding bird atlas, the New York breeding bird atlas, I'm here in New York State, there is a drop-down list, and it goes from I saw a bird to I saw a bird carrying nesting material to all the way up to I found a nest with eggs in it or newly hatched young. So they do have that for the breeding bird atlas. Okay, so what have people come up with here? Okay, that's a good rendering by Lisa, and I can see it. Okay, it's amazing how quickly some people are getting stuff down. Yeah, great. Thank you all. I had a lot of fun putting this together. Let's see, I'm trying to minimize my. Sorry, there. Anyway, this is what I got. Once you have the head in position, the hard thing is getting the head in the right position on a preening bird, because you always, but if you're really just concentrating on the circles and the ovals, it makes it easier. Then you throw in a tail, maybe indication of wings, a few legs. You can gussy it up as much as you want. Okay, we'll do one more here. One caveat I want to put in with the oval, as the bird turns towards or away from you, the oval will become more and more like a circle because of foreshortening. And with a bird like a heron, you almost always will make the head, it's hard to get the head small enough. The turkeys, you got to put a pinhead on them. But remember, the head on a heron is pretty small. So we'll give this one more minute here. And this gives me a chance to read the chat. I'm just looking at Jack's haiku here. Looking for a poem? Try animal poetry from Project Wild. Haiku. Okay, and that is our minute. Does anyone have any thoughts on this speed, technique of, I may be, maybe it's something that everyone is already using. I'm figuring a lot of what I'm saying is probably pretty familiar to everyone.
I'm really drawn to this intentional focus on the behavior rather than the species. I think that makes this whole business of birding much more accessible. I think that's a great way to start.
Yeah, see, Valerie's got a lot of detail in there. Okay. All right, we got some shading. Okay. All right. Thank you all. So mine were, this is my very simple idea of what, and a lot of what I do in my journal ends up pretty much looking like this. But I can remember a lot from that. So these are just, I think we'll move on from the drawing part of it, although everyone's doing great. But I wanted to point out a couple of other of the prompts that you could do. These I think I came up with on my own though. Again, the thing about any of these things is you can infinitely adapt them to your own needs. So thing to look for is different plumages of the same bird, or unknown behavior, like what is this eagle doing? Is he sunning? Is he complaining? He wasn't wet, didn't seem to be drying off. So maybe we'll just leave it as unknown behavior. Okay, and the last thing I wanted to formally cover here before just moving into general chatting are the Leopold exploration cards. These are available from the Leopold Education Project. And these are little prompt cards that you can get from them. They are, it's $10 plus shipping for, I don't know, a whole bunch of them. There's probably about 40 of them. And I think they are just basically very simple prompts that you can use either yourself or with a group. And this one is called Draba and Burrow. The Draba is a very tiny flowering plant that's found in the Midwest. So within a few weeks now, Draba, the smallest flower that blows, will sprinkle every sandy place with small blooms. Most of these groves of scattered veterans, known to the pioneers as oak openings, consisted of burrows. So these are two quotes from, I think, different essays, but on the very similar. So the action is search the area to find the largest plant and the smallest plant. Examine each one closely and make a list of observations about it. Compare your lists. What is different? What is the same? And as you can see, a lot of these are just your basic, this is kind of a basic zoom in, zoom out type of exercise. But it's nice, it ties it into Aldo Leopold, who is someone that probably is maybe falling out of favor with people as we all age, and younger people come in on the scene. So this was my attempt at doing this. I was just up in the Adirondacks, and this was the largest tree in this area, which is a balsam fir. There were bigger balsam firs, but this one I could get a nice picture of. And then this was one of the smallest plants. This is called creeping snowberry. I love the name. And it's in a mat of sphagnum moss, which is probably even more, even smaller, but a little more primitive of a plant. So this isn't a very sophisticated journal entry. It's just a quick drawings, as much as the mosquitoes would allow. I didn't really do very much writing, but I thought what the interactive part of this, I adapted this. This is a quote from Annie Dillard, Pilgrim at Tinker Creek. Live water heals memories. I look up the creek and here it comes, the future, being borne aloft as on a winding succession of laden trays. So my prompt for this would be face upstream on the bank of a swift creek. Try to capture the sensation in image or words. So that was my suggestion. I would like to hear from the group. If you can't come up with a direct quote, which might be difficult on such short notice, maybe just what authors might be amenable to something like this. And you can put it in the chat or just speak your mind.
I'm seeing Mary Oliver, Rachel Carson.
Yeah.
I know a number of homeschool groups are doing things with classic literature. It'd be fun to take just one of the great books you're reading and mine it for pick up whatever book is really inspiring you and then mine that for an inspiration for an activity.
Seeing Rappenwall Kimmerer, Brian Doyle,
Sorry. Redwall, yeah, I forget his name, the author. Oh yeah, Jaques. Right. Did I say James? That's Jacques. Derek Walcott.
Seeing some really awesome other names in here. I'm seeing Thich Nhat Hanh, and I apologize, I think I said his name incorrectly. E.B. White, David George Haskell, Jerome K. Jerome of 3 Men in a Boat, poet Louise Gluck, Peter Mathiasen, and then Sarah made this really lovely comment. She says, I like the link between water and memories in the quote you've chosen, Jim. I would love to stand on the bank and get everyone to imagine the place back in time further up the stream and then imagine the place further downstream in the future. Perhaps in the future if we take care of nature and in the future if we don't. Although I think that might be in adult-only activities, it could be a bit scary to imagine downstream in the future if we don't take care of nature.
Yeah, I'm thinking white. EB White, and then the other white, TH White, the Goshawk, and then that brings up Helen McDonald. Could probably grab a lot of stuff out of that. Pilgrim at Tinker Creek, that's like, you could pretty much pick something out of any page in that. And Peter Matheson.
I'm seeing Steinbeck. Poetry 180 by Billy Collins. Wordsworth's Tintern Abbey. Naomi Shihab Nye, T.S. Eliot, Emerson and Thoreau, For Bit of Music, John Denver. And then, of course, that's making me think of Emily Lygren, Kathleen Dean Moore. Love all these names. We all have some writers and poets who are truly beloved to us.
Yeah, there's probably a lot of songs that could be adapted, something like this. Okay, well, that is all the structured activity that I had. But I think in the best traditions of the forum, that might be good to get people's thoughts on, journaling, freestyle, or prompt, dealing with journaling resistors, or why worry about it? Bye, Susan. And the other question I had is, this is, a lot of these ideas are taken from the Project Wild. Are there other programs like this that people might know about that might be something to think about? I see Lisa is asking, where do you come up with the prompts? I'm not quite sure what that question is.
Maybe Lisa might want to elaborate on that.
Okay. Oh, sorry. I was trying to unmute and it wouldn't do it. So like, do you have a prompt that you associate with like an activity you're doing? Like, do you come up with the prompt or do you search out the prompt? Like, how is the prompt like come about, I guess?
Yeah, I key in with a lot of things that I get. I tend to, as I said, I picked up a lot of stuff on my own from reading and books. So yeah, I key in on things from other sources.
Okay.
But I actually did this thing a bunch of years back. There's a state park near us, Waweonda State Park, a very beautiful place. And somehow I got it in my head, Hokusai's 36 views of Mount Fuji. And I was like, oh, I'm going to do 36 views of Waweonda Park over the course of a year. And this was as small watercolor paintings on little 3x5 blocks. So I did that, and it worked out to like 3 paintings every month.
Oh, nice.
But that was when I just came up. So you can get them from various sources, or just come up with something on your own.
Okay.
maybe something to add to that is I know that in some forms of journaling, sort of copying, sort of making an illuminated manuscript of some quote from something might be a fun way of starting this activity, to find some quote that really resonates with you, and then sort of take some time, like a monk in some scriptoria somewhere, illuminating that, and then using that as a prompt to kind of do an extension of it and to see beyond that, or to use that as sort of a building block for whatever you could do. But you could start with, reading a quote, but you could also start by just the sort of meditation of copying it, and then use that as a jumping off place for something. It also might be interesting for if you have if there are if there's a religious text that you regularly turn to find those parts of it that really resonate with you personally. Copy that and use that as something, because for many people, studying those texts is part of their routine anyway. You could start with that and then tie it into the sort of nature study extension. I saw Avea had something in her paws.
Oh yeah, I was holding up braiding sweetgrass for young adults, because when we were talking about taking quotes and kind of highlighting them, it's almost like they do a similar thing in the book where they say, for example, imagine being raised in a culture in which gratitude is the first priority. And so throughout the book, they have little ways of highlighting ideas like that all the way through the book. And then they also will sometimes ask questions to check for understanding as well. And so this is also a good book of prompts. But when we were mentioning about, finding a quote that we really liked and stuff like that, and then kind of doing that, then it made me just think about how they do this, which I think is really fun.
I like a little braid around the outside too.
Me too. It's super beautiful. What does this one say? Science and traditional knowledge may ask different questions and speak different languages, but they may converge when they both truly listen to the plants. It's just food for thought in this book. So just something I might recommend.
And if you do that, write the quote first, then draw the sweetgrass around it. Otherwise, you might run out of space inside your sweetgrass circle.
Nice. Yeah, so I'm doing nature journaling with kids, and so coming up with little prompts, like I liked the using a paper plate and making circles, because they range from like 5 to like 13, 14. So it's good to have, like, they would all be able to interact with that kind of activity. So that I liked that as a prompt. That's really neat.
I'm thinking, just a thought popping in my head, you could they could cut out like the shape of an animal and then write things about the animal on the shape.
That would be awesome.
I think dimension, actual things are good with kids or adults.
Yeah. Kids all like the hands-on kind of thing when they're touching something.
Are there, so be curious for folks watching, what did you see here? What were ideas that resonated with you? Think about the things you just saw here. What do you really want to put in your pocket and take home with you? I'll kind of get us started. Something that this really made me think about is that I've got all these different environmental education books. How can you use those as a starting place and then adapt them to bring in the feelings, the thoughts, the ethics that you want to bring into your lessons? There are we don't have to reinvent the wheel here, and it is okay to use other people's ideas either directly or to take them and then to modify those. What can you do to kind of make it better? What resonated for other folks? I like having that big list of poetry styles. I have not done a Diamante before, and that was really cool. So it just makes me realize like how many resources are there that are out there. The way you would think if you were to do that would be different than the way you would think if you were doing a haiku, and would be different than the way you would think if you were doing a cross-section diagram. The more of these different possible prompts we can have in our heads when we are out with our children in the field, you can then pull from those to meet the energy level of the group. Something that I took from one of when I was starting in environmental education, the resources were Project Wild and Sharing Nature with Children by Joseph Cornell. Those are the two resources. Every environmental educator had those. And an idea that I find is really useful from Joseph Cornell's stuff is kind of reading the energy level of the group. And when energy level is high, you're doing kind of a high level, high energy activity. These other activities that kind of focus your attention. There are other activities for deep introspection, and you can kind of take people through those. And so you really want to read the energy level of the group, and you can direct that as the program is going. So having more of these sorts of activities that fit into those sorts of categories would be very useful. Like, think of yourself as an educator with like I've got a bunch of high energy activities. Like when your kids get off the bus, don't try to sit down and nature journal with them. They just got off a bus, right? But so have a bunch of those activities, and if you have a bunch of those activities, then you can look at your place and see which one of those would be appropriate for the place, the temperature that it is, whether or not there's poison oak in here or not. If you're in an area with lots of poison oak or poison ivy, don't play the thicket game, right? That's that kind of camouflage game where all the kids are hiding, right? No, not a good idea. They'll come home itching. But so having a variety of these activities in your pocket as a resource, I think is very, very useful. So this makes me really want to go back and look at those resources again. Right.
There was another one that I kind of skipped over, that the Cinquain, or Cinquain for the English pig dog, which is similar. Title 2 words, describe title in 4, action in 6, feeling in 8, reprise title in 2. I'm sure there's others. I was just very surprised to see such a great poetry section.
Yeah, that's really, really useful. I want to suggest one other, and the idea with these forms is you're thinking like, why be constrained by 575? Like, what's the deal with that? The deal with that is that if your part of your brain is thinking like you're counting syllables, it slows you down and is going to make you think in just a little bit of a different way. If you do find it too restrictive, then like sometimes you're like, oh, I really like this line of my haiku, but it doesn't beat out to 5 at the end. I've invented another kind of poetry form, which I call a maiku, which is like a haiku that doesn't have to beat out to the right number of syllables. So you can always throw in a maiku when you want to. But sometimes when you are constrained a little bit by the counting of these things, it's going to make you just slow down and sometimes just be a little bit more careful with that word choice. That's really useful. Right. So in a moment, we're going to be bringing this section, this portion of our Nature Journal Educators program to a close. Jim Van Gelder, I want to thank you so much for coming and sharing these ideas with us. I think this has opened up a conversation and a lot of ideas that we otherwise would not be thinking about. And this is really, really useful stuff. I'm really grateful to you. And I also want to encourage other people in our community. If you've got something to share, this is a fun, informal, safe place, clean, well-lighted place for educators to kind of hang out and share ideas. I want to invite you to just get in contact with Avea and me, and we'll set something up where we can share. We want to share all good ideas. Again, Jim, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for the opportunity. It's a great experience, and everyone's so supportive. And thank you to all the comments that are coming in from everyone. I really appreciate it. I can't respond to them, but thanks to everyone.
I also want to send a shout out to the mad botanist Avea Moore. Thank you so much for helping manage this. You know, I love the way that you noticed there are ideas in the chat that you want to put a little sticky note on and bring those back into the conversation. You really help make sure that nobody gets overlooked and ignored, as well as your own contributions to our conversation and idea are so valuable. Thank you so much for being here. Do you have any thoughts or ideas for the group before we close?
Just that this has been wonderful. Save the chat, everybody. Everybody really ought to save the chat because of all of the great resources and also all of the great conversation. So much, I'm seeing so much positive support for Jim and for your workshop today. Jim is a regular here at the Educators Forum, as well as one of my most solid pencil miles and chill buddies, and is just an all-around wonderful dude. So I encourage folks to reach out to him, ask questions, and start some really good conversations.
Yeah, do people have my email? Is that available? Could you throw that in quick?
Yeah, no problem. Is Hotmail, right? Froggy Llama at Hotmail?
Yeah, Froggy Llama at Hotmail.
And is it all right to have that on the recording that goes on the web?
Sure.
Excellent. So if you're just watching this on the web, we invite you to be in contact with Jim, share your best ideas, be kind, be respectful, always when we reach out to other people. Thank you all very much.
I apologize. I'm seeing Valerie asking how to save the chat. If you look into the meeting chat, it should say NJ Educators Forum, and then there should be 3 dots next to it. And then if you click on those, then it should say save chat at the top. But in case anybody's having trouble with the chat or is on their phone or something, I'm going to put my email in the chat. If you write it down, write to me or write your email in, and I will try to get you the chat. Sorry to interrupt you, Jack. I just wanted to make sure people have access to that if they need.
Thank you very much. So I'm going to go to that ellipsis. So first, I'm going to click on the chat box on the bottom of my screen. I'm then going to click on the ellipsis in the top part of that box. And there I see it as a choice. Excellent. Until we meet again, everyone, be kind, be curious. Let's use these journals to share the world ourselves, and let's share this way of interacting with the world with others as best we can. So appreciate all of you being here. Thank you. Oh, I see that Tabby Shaw has raised a hand.
That was unintentional, but I wanted to thank Jim again for inviting me to this forum. I had no idea it existed, and I appreciate everybody's enthusiasm. I think, you know, the more tools we have in our pockets, and I think it's the running theme that I thought that was interesting is that someone was saying in the chat, kids can, you know, kids have it in them, that sense of awe. It's the adults who struggle to kind of ignite that up again. And so that's what I was thinking the whole time is like, you know, how we can re-engage adults with the natural world through practices like this. It's very inspirational. Thank you, everybody. And thanks, Jim, again.
Well, thank you, Tabby. Also, would you shoot me an email? I'd love to be in touch and learn a little bit more about the workshops and the work that you do.
Sure, I can do that. And your email I can find
Yep, just on my website, or
Okay.
if anybody's listening, John Muir Laws at johnmuirlaws.com.
Thank you. This has been wonderful. Thanks.
Thanks for coming, Tabitha.
We will be seeing you soon, friends. Take care.